thank all of you for signing up and being a part of these learning series. We're still talking about a name of some kind. Anybody creative and wants to send us a name, we'd love to take it. But these were created to be able to give back to our community and help you all learn something about your pet or use some useful information about your own pets. Some of you are therapy teams, some aren't, and we really just want the community to focus our information around pets and how you can make pets better, in your lives and how you can help them. I am remiss because I didn't say I'm Melissa Steimer, the CEO of Gabriel's Angels, who is hosting this. And I also want to just thank very quickly, we've got a couple of our board members here, our chair of the board, Carla Fisher, for Gabriel's Angels, and then Norm Dominguez back here is also a board member. And we're grateful that they come themselves and want to learn and be a part of this. And then I want to thank staff, Elizabeth back there and Annie, who work very hard, and we have a very small staff, and to be able to come in here, and Elizabeth bought all the meats, cheeses, created that charcuterie board. And so yes, give her a big hand. But she's always willing. I'm like, just go buy a charcuterie, but no, I'll put it together. It's less money. So I appreciate that very much. And both Annie and Elizabeth, thank you for being here. Who I want to now bring up before we get to our topic for today is Amara and Associates. They're going to share more about who they are, but Kyle and Whitney from Amara have underwritten these learning series for the next year for us. We're really grateful. It allows us to be able to provide the food, the drinks, and they actually are really connected to our mission too of helping pets and people, and they'll share more. So I'm going to bring you two up here. But on your way out, because they had just gotten here, we've got boxes back there. They have these really cute leashes. Take one. They have these dog toys, and Kyle, maybe you can even explain more about this, but we've got a couple of dog toys back there. Take one. They have these really great water bowls, the collapsible water bowls. So please each take one. They're here for you, and I really appreciate that they brought them here. So
thank you so much for having us. So as she said, I'm Kyle, it's Whitney. Amara of Amara Associates is actually my wife. She is currently hosting another event because we like to burn the candle at both ends here. No, my wife has been an attorney for about 13 years now. And we recently went out on our own. We're a personal injury firm, but we try to be the antique billboard firm. And one of the things about going out on our own that she really wanted to do is give back to the community because she hadn't been able to. We are both very, very into pets. We have 2 dogs and 6 cats. Whitney has the one dog. And actually one of mine is back there. I actually just had to come from the biopsy, bringing him from the vet. So it took a little longer to get him. So I just came right here. But yeah. Please.
Cool. So my name's Woody. I am one of the attorneys at Amara and Associates, and I think one of the reasons she hired me is we're both extremely committed to helping people. And at the firms that we're at, sometimes it's about the numbers and not so much the people. And one of those areas is property damage. So I do want to ask you guys, has anyone in here been in a car accident? You can't raise your hand, you don't have to, you can just think about it. And then the real question is, how many people drive with their dogs in their car? Right? Everyone, all of us. And more, when you look over the car next to you, you see your cute little face, tail wagging, and you just see it all the time. Accidents happen all the time. Sometimes your pets are in the car with you. And then what do? Right? So government and companies don't see our pets like we do as people, they see them as property. But what that means is if your dog is in the car and you're in an accident, we can make a property damage claim for those vet bills or whatever else you need to have. And that's a conversation that we don't think that other personal injury attorneys are having.
As far as we know, we're the only firm that actually helps with this, and we help with it for free because we help with all property damage.
And that's probably why other firms don't really talk about this area. It is a pain in the butt. There's a lot to negotiate. And you don't get paid on it.
But we believe in it.
We do, yeah, because if you're stressed out about what is happening to my dog, what is happening to my car, you're not going to be focused on getting better. You're going to be thinking about what am I going to do tomorrow. So we're very happy to be able to do that, to have those conversations. I am gonna encourage you when you get home to look at your policy, make sure that there's not a pet exclusion in your own policy. But we can definitely help if anyone's in an accident and their dog is in the vehicle, help negotiate those vet bills and make sure that that is being considered. Because if you feel about your pets, which I assume you do, the way that we do, they're not just your pets, they're your family. And we can still make a claim for them. It won't be a bodily injury claim, but we can do a property damage claim for them.
And we have some stuff back there. They've got, some, flyers and stuff.
Yeah, we've got a couple brochures.
Yeah, brochures. And I will just second Kyle, your wife, Amara. They support our event. They're a sponsor at our event in the fall. She really does. When she says she gets back, she gets back. And to be able to even underwrite this, I'm just so appreciative for you guys. And I really do think you're doing what's best out there for, those of us who may be in a very challenging and, situation, dangerous situation.
We truly do try to do the right thing and just help people, which, the guys on the billboards or whoever else.
Not saying the worst. Sometimes things happen, but if you do want a second opinion, we'd even be happy to take those calls. We really do just want to do the most for people, because what benefits your neighbor benefits all of us. If people are happier and healthier, the world is better. It really is. And I did want to make a note about pizza.
Oh, yeah.
These are fun. But the scoop is right in the center, so in case you're curious, that's where it is. It took my dog a while to find out, and she got pretty frustrated, so. Just so you guys know, she's very light, so jumping on it really didn't do anything, but it's good for bigger dogs.
90
yes,
seconds, we will remove the squeaker.
Mine is usually immediate. It still took him about 5-10 minutes, so usually it's about
You
10
should try to
seconds.
give it a whirl.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a bunch
I
back
don't
there.
want you to know how successful.
But yeah, so we're ecstatic that you guys could have us, and thanks so
Yeah.
much. We're all about the mission and we really appreciate it.
No, thank you guys. We appreciate having you a part of it. And, let's, again, they've got stuff for you. Give them a round of applause. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. All right, so now we're gonna get to the topic, and you know, this is too about not only helping people, but when your pets are in a situation where they too need to be taken care of. We've got Kate Klasen here, and she is with, and you're gonna share more, Kate, about yourself, but Human and Animal Emergency Lifeline Preparedness, and she'll tell you how important that is, and I will turn it over to her. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, good evening. I appreciate when I get response. Yeah. So thank you guys for coming here tonight. Thank you for listening to me. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart for many, many, many reasons. First and foremost, I mean, I'm a pet parent, just like you guys, right? And they mean the world to me. My pets are my family. So who am I? Oh, no. It's not working. I know. I'm so sorry. Oh, there's another pup over here. So in the meantime, before I introduce myself, I will introduce my dogs, since most of them have greeted you as you came in. So Bishop and Tiny Tim, they are my co-instructors. So usually when I teach my in-person pet CPR classes, those guys come with me, because then I have an example of. Is it?
I'll give that to
Oh, I
you.
made it work last time. I know. So then I have an example of how do we perform technique on a small dog or cat, and then how do we do the technique on a bigger dog. I love bringing them with me when I do vendor events as well, because I will tell you, this is why whenever I say I thank you guys for being here and taking the time out to listen to me, it's so near and dear to my heart, because I can't tell you how many times I set up as a vendor and I get laughed at. People think that this topic is funny. They think that they don't need it. I've had somebody come up to me and they had a smaller dog, not Tiny Tim size, good sized terrier. And she started laughing and she was like, I think she's a little too small for that, don't you think? And she walked off. And I was like, is it working? No. You need to be.
We have
So,
you.
we have me, I'm sitting here now, but the people on Zoom are getting a great view of my face. Well, this is not cool. So, so yes, so I do thank you guys, because I feel like I gotta get out there and at least let you guys know that this is available to you. I find that a lot of people don't even know that this is a thing, and I get that. So a little bit, now I'm gonna jump to me, so a little bit about. Thank you.
I don't know how, but I did it.
So a little bit about who I am. I grew up in a first responder household. I grew up in the fire department. Most all my family is firefighters. We're in the Chicago, Illinois area. And as I grew up, that's what I thought I wanted to do. So I became an EMT, and life had other plans for me. So I worked as a 911 dispatcher, did that for many years. I don't want to put the years out there because I don't want you to figure out how old I am, but I did it for many years. During that time period that I was a dispatcher, I was a field training officer for other dispatchers. And believe it or not, I know it's kind of hard to believe, I actually got kind of bored with that. And I wanted to get onto the other side of the radio. So I finished out my career as a patrol officer. And during those years as a patrol officer, I taught at the police academy, where I taught CPR first aid to the first responders, amongst other topics. I was a taser instructor and other things as well. So I'm thinking at this point, I am ready to save the world, right? And then my 5-pound chihuahua starts choking. And it wasn't even like I had a chance, because I fed them breakfast. I turned around, went to get my coffee, heard that, turn around, she's on her side and she's turning blue. And so I picked her up, and luckily my mind's going, how do you do CPR on a 5-pound dog? Right? And my body starts going into action. And I couldn't tell you to this day exactly what I did, but it was enough that it dislodged that object, and she's still with me today. Okay. That's when I stood back and I thought, I felt so helpless in that moment. And I thought, that's not cool. When you got first responder in your blood, that's not cool. So I went out and I learned what to do. And I became an instructor through Pet Tech. Then I went and took additional training through Canine Medic, which was excellent. Veterinary Tactical Group. I took training through the Recover program, which is the program that sets the guidelines for veterinarians. I did the Paravet Canine Educators. I did the Red Cross. Then I also kept in touch with my human side, and became a Health Safety Institute training facility. Kept my American Heart Association for a little while, and I've since let that expired. I've done Stop the Bleed. United States Concealed Carry Association has a lot of good medical programs, so I've taken some of theirs. And then Search and Rescue Coalition through Florida, they go over emergency preparedness for animals. That was the closest thing that I could find, because Arizona didn't have anything that I could find to take at this present time. So I try to keep up on my training status, not only because I have nothing else to do, but because I want to always bring you guys the most current information. Okay. So how are you prepared? And I ask you, and I want you to be honest with yourself, are you prepared for an animal emergency? Have you ever thought of any type of emergency plan? Are you trained in CPR first aid? Do you have any supplies on hand? So it's great, maybe we know the knowledge, but then do we have what we need to apply that, right? And so the reason that I ask this is because it's really important when we start looking at our statistics, which this is where I get so frustrated, because I shouldn't have to sit here and be a grassroots movement trying to get to people to know that this is available to you, right? Because American Animal Hospital Association publishes that 1 in 4 dogs could have a dramatic better outcome if only one first aid technique was applied before arriving at the veterinarian. Do we know that? We don't really know that, right? Yet the pet insurance statistics, they state that 1 in 3 pets will need an emergency visit every single year. 1 in 3. Now, I'm gonna cheat here because I want to make sure I got my numbers right. So I'm gonna take a look here and did a little research to find out that 66% of US households own a pet. That's 86.9 million people have pets in their lives in the US alone, right? Dogs are the most popular pet in the US, equaling 65.1 million US households own a dog, followed by cats, who have 46.5 million households. 1 out of every 3 pets needs an emergency visit every single year. Yet, the survey conducted by the veterinary charity found that 80% of owners don't have any type of first aid kit, and even scarier, 9 out of 10 owners have absolutely no first aid training at all. And I hear this all the time, and I still hear this from my clients. I'll just take them to the vet. I hear that a lot. So I'll get into that here in a moment about my experience just recently with the vet office and an emergency vet visit. But I'll just take them to the vet. I ask you, my 5-pound Chihuahua, it's on her side, already turning blue, shaking. Do I have enough time to register what happened, pick her up, go find my keys, get in my car, start the car, get her going, get into the vet, tell them what's going on, and then at that point, emergency technique is applied. Would she still be here today?
No.
Probably not. Probably not. So I always say you want to start out knowing what normal vital signs are. We all know, how do you know when you're sick? Typically we take our temperature, we know what our normal temperature approximately should be. Everybody may be a little bit different, but we at least know approximately how our temperature is supposed to be, how we're supposed to feel. We could communicate that. They don't have a way to communicate that, except for knowing what their normal vital signs are. So I ask you, who here knows what the temperature is supposed to be for an animal?
It's, not 100 to 101, I believe.
A little bit higher, so it's 100.4 to 102.5. Okay, so if I know, if I'm outside with Bishop here, if I'm outside and he seems like he's getting a little hot and I'm starting to get concerned and I take his temperature and it's 105, 106, do I need to start getting worried? How do I know that unless I know what the normal vitals are? How do I know that something's wrong? Now, what I didn't put in my history here is I retired from law enforcement because I'm in Arizona, right? So that was kind of obvious, right? But I retired from law enforcement and opened up a grooming salon out here. So I initially started in a vet office. I worked as a vet assistant, learned how to groom, and started my own grooming business. So I have my hands on dogs every single day, every single dog that you can think of. And I hate to say it, but most people don't put their hands on their animals. Most people don't look at their animals. I have found crazy things on dogs, crazy things. And it's literally just lifting up the ear. I've had a dog that had an ear infection so bad, it had like some sort of growth coming out of it. And he had absolutely no idea when all he had to do was lift up the ear. So when I say no normal vitals and get to do like a little wellness check and start from the top and go all the way to the bottom and lift up that back tail and look at that sandy area, which is kind of gross, but we need to do that stuff for them because that is the type of stuff that they're going to let us know that something's going wrong. Okay. So this is a normal vital chart. You guys are more than welcome if you want to take a picture of it. But I'm gonna have you look at the breathing rate. So I had one of my dogs Christmas Eve morning, just this past Christmas Eve, right? Now, of course, because they always have something go wrong on the weekend or a holiday. And of course, mine chose to do it on a holiday. So it was Christmas Eve morning. I wake up, my dog, who didn't have any health problems prior to this, she wakes up and she's breathing really heavy. And so I took all of her vital signs. Everything else came out normal except for her breathing rate. Her breathing rate was between 55 and 60, resting breathing rate. She should have been at 10 to 30. So that's the red flag right there, right? So I contact a couple of my vet friends and just say, hey, this is kind of what I got going on. Gave them what her vitals were. Now I give them credit. They didn't have eyes on the dog, right? And they were like, well, from what you're telling us, and it doesn't seem like it's a dire emergency, like go take her in right now, but keep an eye on her. I said, okay. So luckily I did, and luckily I was home, and luckily I stayed in the room that she was in at all times, because at one point in time, she goes to get up and she collapsed. When she collapsed, I heard, and I was like, no, not on my dime, honey, because I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for that, not her. There was nothing wrong with her. I wasn't ready. And so I picked her up and I started doing CPR on her, and I was able to bring her back. I called the emergency vet, and I had my mom start calling some of the other ones in the area to see who's available. And it took them 20 minutes to even answer the phone. 20 minutes to answer the phone. And when I get them on the phone, I say, what is your wait time? 3 hours. But luckily, I knew how to take vitals. And so I was able to communicate that. And I said, okay, well, I might have to go down to Phoenix then. And she goes, well, what's going on? And so I communicated all her vitals were normal, except for the fact that her breathing rate is 55 to 60. And she goes, she's in respiratory distress. And I said, yeah. She said, we'll triage that. Go ahead and bring her down. I said, okay. Well, now I've got a 30-minute drive. So now I got to stabilize her for 30 more minutes, right? And she did at one point in time collapse again, but I felt a heartbeat. So I just did a couple rescue breaths, kept her going, got her into the vet. They got her on oxygen. We got her on medications. She's still with me today. And now she was basically went into congestive heart failure. And so now we have her on medications, and she's actually doing pretty good. Okay. But if I didn't know how to communicate that, they probably would have thought that I was just bringing in something ordinary and had me wait the 3 hours. So there's definitely a lot that our dogs and cats. So I always say dogs because I'm a dog groomer and I own dogs, but I always want to make sure in my classes, everything pertains to cats as well. I don't want the cat people to feel left out. Cats are important. Cats are just not in my household, so I tend to say dog, but cats are definitely included. So everything here pertains to dogs and cats, okay? So when we sit here, we talk about our mucous membrane color, that tells us a lot, because that's another way for them to communicate. If we look at our fingernail and we press on our fingernail, it turns white, and you let go and it turns pink right away. That's your capillary refill time. We take that on the dogs. Bishop, your time to shine, buddy. No, you can't visit. No visit. It's like, but he looks so attractive. All right. So capillary refill time, you're going to lift this up. You're going to push on their gum. It's going to go white and then go pink again. Okay. If it's not safe for you to do so, if they're like, no, I don't want you to do that, you can always lift up the lip and do it on the top of the lip area here. And depending on their ears, you can do it on the inside of the ear. Anywhere that there's not going to be a lot of fur that you'd be able to start getting in there. Now, of course, that's not the same mucous membrane, but it's going to give you an indication. When my dog was choking, she turned blue. She had no oxygen coming to her, and she turned blue. I mean, she almost looked like, Willy Wonka when they ate the blueberries. Okay. I have seen it when I worked in the vet office when they turn bright yellow because they have liver problems, and I'm talking bright yellow, and we're looking at eyes, we're looking at ears, we're looking at every place that is outside of fur is yellow, okay? So, and then red bleeding gums could also mean trauma, foreign body, and toxic exposure. Another story here, groomer friend of mine, she grooms, she also teaches, and she checks in a dog. The dog had bright red gums. She says to the owner, we're not doing this groom today. You need to get this dog to the vet ASAP. So they did. Luckily, they listened and they did. And they get to the vet to find out that the dog consumed rat poison. And they pumped out, if I remember her story correctly, they pumped out almost 2 pounds worth. So if she wouldn't have known that as she was checking in for grooming, that dog may have gone on her table, right? All right, so we're in a day and age right now that everywhere we go, we walk into pets, right? Whether it be in a restaurant, whether it be at the store. It's not always gonna be just at home with our own pets like it used to be years ago. When I was growing up, nobody brought their pets out. The pet was to stay at home. Now we have pets everywhere, right? So you're out to eat with friends on a nice summer day, dining on the patio. The next table over has their dog with them. While in conversation, you hear a loud noise. Upon looking over, you see a dog laying on the ground, turning blue. The owner is in a panic, loudly asking for help because her dog is choking. Are you prepared for this type of emergency? I'm gonna take my tiny Timmers. He's like, you're a little on the late ball, Mom. This would have been more effective if you would have gotten me out 30 seconds ago. But here's Tiny Tim, right? I go out to eat at a restaurant, Tiny Tim starts choking. I can tell you right now, I am gonna be a lunatic. I am gonna lose my mind. And I'm gonna come up and I'm gonna say, help me, please help me, please help me. Right? Are you prepared for that? And unfortunately, most people are gonna say no. I wanna change that around. I want most people to say yes. Because of the fact that they don't have a system, right? We are their system. If I go down right now and I say to you guys, hey, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna bet you everybody in here is gonna say, I'm gonna call 911, right? Because we have a system set in place. You're gonna do it?
Firefighter.
Awesome. Thank you for your service. So we are going to initially, right, for most, they're gonna wanna call 911. Right? Well, a lot of people just depend on the dispatcher to tell them what to do. And I always say it depends on who I'm teaching, but I always say, well, what are you gonna do? It takes, Phoenix right now, I think is up to 9 minutes on some response times, 5 minutes, whatever it is. Even if it's like 2 minutes. For that 2 minutes, you're just gonna kind of kick me. Be like, sucks to you, right? No. We want to be able to do something. We know that time is not on our side in an emergency. We have a whole system set into place. You have an emergency, you call 911, that activates the EMS, which activates the doctors and nurses, and everybody is already aware of what's going on. They're prepared for you to get there, to get to you as quickly as possible. When it comes to our pets, they got us. That's it. You have to be the dispatcher. You have to transport. You have to sustain them. You have to activate the nurses. You have to activate the doctor. This is why I've heard over the years, many vet techs and other pet professionals say, it's not worth it. It's not worth doing anything to them. They don't survive. They don't survive because they don't have anybody. They don't have a system, right? That's why they don't survive. Because I will tell you, as of October 2022, the Recover program, which is the same program that they use on the human side, the Recover program actually studies what's going on the street. What's going on? This is why over time we see changes, right? As far as I remember when I started CPR first aid, it was 15-2 on Dummy Annie many, many years ago. Now it's 30-2. We see changes over time, right? But that's because they do studies, see what statistically what's working. Sometimes they take it out. Remember, no tourniquets. Now they're bringing tourniquets back. It's just, things change. Recover program did a study on the animal side, and they came back and they said, it's not futile. It's the percentage small as far as how much we can bring them back, because we have to get to them quickly, but it's not futile. It's definitely worth doing it. Okay. Oh, no.
Break over.
All right. So as she's doing that, I'll just continue forward. So one of the things that we can do to help our animals is to know some preventative measures, right? So what are some of the preventative measures that we can do? And she'll have it up here in a minute.
There you go.
But we could buy proper sized toys, right? I see missized balls all the time and it just like makes me want to cringe. Because if we look here, look how easily that ball can go down that throat, right? Now, the other thing that I see all the time too, see how there's a lot of holes and stuff in there, and usually some of the toys, they have a hole on one end and a hole on the other end. A lot of times they make them that way for safety issues, because they know if that goes down, at least they can have some sort of airway.
Yeah, I think it just times out.
That's not cool.
That's it, yeah.
I've never had that before. But the reason that they do this for safety precaution. And then we were like, oh, we're gonna use this as an enrichment toy. And we're gonna fill that with peanut butter and a whole bunch of other stuff and make them dig it out of there. And we've totally taken away any safety precaution. Okay. So some of the other ones that are on the top of the list as far as why they end up in the emergency room that could be prevented is because us, right? We put stuff in our households that they can reach. Number one is prescription medication. And that is veterinary and human medications. We're seeing a lot more human medications used on the veterinary side of things, just at different dosages. So if they get into that, that is an overdose, right? Cleaning products. I think that one's kind of self-explanatory. Rat poisons, vehicle products, and fertilizers. And now we're starting to see edibles and those type of intoxications. Oh, and then of course, the big one right now, xylitol. How many of you have heard about the xylitol and how that's bad for your animals? So xylitol is a human sweetener that is being put in a lot of food, and it kills dogs and it can kill them very quickly. And basically, kind of an overview, what happens is it spikes their blood sugar levels very quick, but that it drops it and makes them go into hypoglycemia just as quickly. And so if they get into, I think it's like that ice cube gum. If I remember they were right, it's 2 to 4 pieces of that can kill a dog that's 60 pounds. So if he were to get 2 or 4 pieces of that xylitol in that is enough that it can kill him if I don't get him to the vet quick. It may be. So they're starting to put it in a lot more stuff now, and they're renaming it so you don't know it. So it's not going to necessarily say xylitol. It may say birch wood, it may say birch sugar. There's another one that they just came out with, and I can't remember off the top of my head. But if you go on the FDA website and type in xylitol, they have a whole poster and they have everything on there to tell you about how toxic it is to the animals.
Why
And
isn't it toxic to us?
but that's the
Or are
thing.
they slowly killing us?
So I just read somewhere that they're starting to find that it is causing health issues for us as well. Yeah. But we used to, like, for allergy reactions in dogs, how many times have you heard, just give them some Benadryl? Well, I recently read, I would definitely recommend reading the labels on the Benadryl, because I recently read that they're starting to put the xylitol in the gel caps as well.
Is that birch sugar, wood sugar, birch bark extract?
What was the bird thing you said?
Birch sugar, wood sugar, and birch bark extract.
All right, so the other one I like to touch on is especially here in Arizona, heat injury. I see a lot of stuff out there that I'm just like, why, people, why? And especially when I set up as a vendor at certain dog events and stuff, and I'm really like, why, people, why? because I dogs and they look like they're overheating. And I've actually had dogs come into my booth and collapse because they were looking for shade. And I have said to them, you know, let me give them some water. And they were like, no, they're fine. They're fine. And I'm like, no, they're not fine. And then I had another one, not too long ago. He came down and, you know, plops himself down, big Great Dane. And so we start giving him ice and the owner's like, come on, buddy, you know, you're fine, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, no, he's not fine, right? So let's learn how to recognize heat injury, right? Let's not put them in our hot cars. And I know that there are systems out there. I think it's the Waggle. So the Waggle is a system that you can put it in your car and it keeps the temperature of your car and then it notifies you on your phone. So let's say, I know I've done it with him sometimes, you guys probably do it too, be in service. Sometimes they're just, you have to run in somewhere and you're like, oh, I've got my dog with me. But the Waggle will notify you if there's any change in the temperature in the car. The only thing is, as we've seen on the police vehicles and stuff, sometimes technology fails. And that's a lot of times what happens when you see canine animals end up passing away. It's because the equipment failed. So one of the things that one of my trainer friends have always taught me is even if you have something like that, always still have eyes on. And the other thing that I wasn't aware of until I started talking to her too, I guess some of the newer vehicles actually turn off within 30 minutes. So if you were to, you know, if you're traveling somewhere, you leave them, you got the air conditioning going and you think you're good to go, I'd still go out and check at least every 15 minutes or so because the cars are now starting to turn themselves off. But then I heard Tesla has a dog switch or something. Okay.
But I'm still nervous, like I still am scared, but it comes up on the screen and it says, my owners know I'm in here, the temperature is this, and it has a cute dog on it.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
It is amazing. So I would still get nervous because it's still technology. I don't trust technology. I'm one of those. But the other thing too that I see a lot too is people walking in the hottest part of the day and not have anything on their feet. And so I'm one of those, like I do other grooming seminars and stuff like that. And I'm one of those. And so I always got to test everything out. Right. And so he has his boots, but I got this stuff. It's called Musher's Secret, right?
Yeah.
And then you put it on the paw, it's supposed to help build that up. And so it protects them from the cold and then the heat and stuff. And so I was like, oh, is this really true? Because that'd be great. Because my other one doesn't really like having stuff on his paws. And so I started putting it on my feet. And I was walking outside and I was like, this is work. It's not working. Put boots back on. So, you know, if it's too hot for you, it's gonna be too hot for them. I think we forget, even though they have paw pads and it's a little bit thicker, it's still just skin. So don't walk them out on that hot pavement. And I hate to like say it like we're all idiots, but I've seen it.
The back of your hand on the pavement is too much.
Right, yeah. And I've literally, I mean, I've done it where I'm like, oh, it seems like okay, and I'll take my shoes off and then I'll stand there for a minute and I'll be like, nah, boots. And my neighbors probably think I'm crazy. All right, so all of that stuff that we've talked about could ultimately lead to CPR, right? Now, this is where I say, now we know that it's not futile. It's definitely worth it to jump in. When it comes to CPR, we have to remember that we're acting as a mechanical aid, because why are we doing CPR to begin with? Because they're not breathing and there's no life, right? So we have to act as that mechanical aid to push the oxygen to the organs, okay? Animals fall in the same category as children in the regard that, not to say that it doesn't happen, because anything is possible, right? But for the most part, most animals don't have a heart attack. Sometimes it's categorized as a heart attack according to the veterinarians that I've talked to, but it's not in the true sense of the word that like our heart attack. Usually when an animal goes down and they're not breathing, it's because they've already been deprived of oxygen. which means everything else has been deprived of oxygen, and we need to start those compressions right away as quickly as possible. So I think that's probably why my dog ended up having a good chance, because I was literally right there and started the compressions as soon as she went down. Okay, I've actually had to do CPR a couple of times now because of the fact that I work with animals on a daily basis. I had somebody come in and didn't disclose to me the medications that their animal was on, and he combined two medications that basically bottomed the dog out. So the dog was okay, absolutely fine on the table, and then all of a sudden just went boom. And so I had to do CPR, contact him, and this is where we have to, when it comes to legal aspect, and I go into that a little bit more in a full class. I had to call him and say, hey, this is what just happened. And even though I do sign my clients sign a release form prior to, but I still double check with them because they're property. And I said, this is what just happened. She's still kind of coming in and out of it. Do you want me to take your dog to the vet? And he said, no. Okay. And he said, I'll be right over to come pick her up. And he came and he picked her up, and he didn't take her to the vet until over a week later. But she was still alive over a week later to take her to the vet. She actually survived a couple months more after that. But it wasn't until he came to pick her up that he said, oh, you know what? She's on new blood pressure medication, and I gave her the anxiety medication. But you didn't feel that that was necessary to tell me when she's in my care. So this is where there's more education than just the emergency aspect of it. There's the education of how to deal with your professionals as well. Okay. So if we're dealing with CPR, because they go down, I got to get to that right away. And there's a lot of similarities between the human side and the animal side when it comes to CPR. When I do my full classes and I go into all the techniques, we will see that even though there's a lot of similarities, and I try to always compare when I'm doing my full classes, like, well, on the human side of things, this is what we do. Well, this is kind of, related to the human side of things, because so many people have human CPR in their background, or at least have a little bit of knowledge of it. With that muscle memory, that's probably what you're going to automatically turn to. And so this is why I want you to see the similarities between both, because you've probably already got that muscle memory going for you. So it'll be easier to remember, but you are still between 100 and 120 beats per minute. That's pretty much like on the human side. It's still 30 compressions, 2 breaths. That's pretty much on the human side. A half to a third depth for your compression for the chest width. Very, very close to the human side. What's different is their body shapes, right? Bishop up. So this is where I like to bring my assistants with me to be able to show people, especially on a full class, is no visit, okay? Am I gonna do the same compression on Tiny as I am on Bishop? And am I gonna do the same compression on Bishop as I am on that guy? Am I gonna do the same compression on these guys as I am on the other little guy that was in here before? Right? Some of them, yes. Some of them, they may be the same, but some of them, they may be different. Tiny Tim, definitely different. We all know that one. Kitties, definitely different. The kitties are gonna be along the same lines as Tiny Tim. It's like, yeah. It's like, I'm ready to retire from this gig. Where Bishop is going to be different, but Bishop's compression compared to a German Shepherd is gonna be different. Bishop's compression is going to be more of cardiac compression, where we actually go over the heart and are a mechanical aid over the heart. Whereas more of a rounded chested dog, like a German Shepherd, we actually have to do a different hand position, because what we're doing is building up the pressure within the thoracic cavity to put the pressure on the heart, because they have so much muscle and the way that they're formed. We can't get to it cardiac wise, right? Now, let's say your Frenchies and your Bulldogs, that's totally different. We actually, the best way to do the compression on them is to turn them over on their back and go straight in on the chest like you would with a human compression, just because their rib cage is so wide. right? I always say it's like Spike from Tom and Jerry. Now, when you see him this wide and then think of him when he collapses and he's just gonna be like, whoop, right? To sit here and do a compression on the side is not gonna be as effective as rolling him on his back. So this is where, what I'm gonna do tonight is show you kind of a broad technique that you can use, because I'd rather have you walk out of here and do something than not do anything at all, versus being in a full class where I get more detailed on your hand positions, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna travel to the different sides of the room so everybody can see, and I'm gonna show the hand position on Bishop, whereabouts you're gonna be for a CPR. Bishop, come on. I'm gonna have you come this side. Oh, switch, I know, it's not your normal side. We're gonna go straight. No visit, no visit. All right, so when it comes to a bigger dog, this might be Bishop here. Come on, down. 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 Come on. He's like, no, I'm not gonna do it. All right, come on, down. Down. Alright, so when we're doing CPR on him, so he's completely no life. I've already done my emergency assessment to determine that this is what I need to do. And what I'm gonna say for a broad compression that you can try is take that front leg, the elbow points to the heart. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring that back where that elbow points, that's where you're gonna put your hand position. And then the dog his side, then we're gonna come down and do 30 compressions, and then we're gonna do 2 breaths. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Again, I wanna do a half to a third of the depth of the chest, because we're acting as that mechanical aid. So you gotta think of that muscle, and we have to press that muscle and then let it recoil and bring all that blood back up into it, press it, push it out, let it fully recoil, okay? So we're a mechanical aid. For the breast, he gets a little iffy when it comes to me doing his breaths, right? But for the breast, as you can see, the other difference when it comes to the dog side versus the human side of things, look how far down I gotta go in order to give him a breath, right? That's gonna be a little bit tougher on me and my diaphragm to really give him what he needs, but you're gonna probably tire out a little bit faster than if you would probably, I can't say. Everybody's gonna be different, but it's definitely gonna be more taxing on you physically. So to do the 2 breaths, you're gonna go breathe right into the nose. No. So you can either hold the muzzle this way because we want to form a tight seal. If I breathe into the nose and I form a seal this way and you hear, and I know it's not going in, right? So what I like to teach is, this is where he gets a little, I don't want to do this, Mom, is I pull the top lip over and then I make that tight seal. Okay, and then I'm gonna go down into the nose. I'm gonna breathe right into the nose, 2 breaths, out. I used to teach, put your head to the side, make sure you can see the rise and fall, but a lot of times you're not gonna see that because of their fur and how furry they are. So you might not see that, and I don't want anybody getting caught up looking for a rise and fall. From my experience doing CPR on an animal, you will get a very good idea whether or not it's on, okay? And then at that point, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna do my 30 compressions. And again, you can use that leg kind of guide you and put your hand placement back there. So as you can see, he's a little bit thinner in the chest area here, which is why I can go right over his heart and do more of a cardiac compression.
Does it matter what side the dog's laying on?
No, so their heart tends to lay more on the left side, but it doesn't matter because when they're down like that, so this is Bishop at 55 pounds, but he's alive and his muscles are helping me. If Bishop at 55 pounds is completely lifeless and I don't have the help, if I don't have that help, I'm not picking him up like that because he's wobbling all over the place. I don't care if it's gonna be on the right or left side, just do the best that you can in that situation.
Well, how far down are you pushing on him?
On him right now, not that far. Because I might not be able to drive home. But if he's unconscious,
Yeah,
then I'm trying to go between a half to a third of the depth of the chest.
the half, I guess, with the full.
At least half. At least half.
So that'd be maybe. No,
Yeah.
problem, but
Yeah,
side to side,
I mean, and every dog's gonna be different how big they are, so his compression's gonna be a little bit harder than his compression. Yeah, but you wanna at least get to a half. Again, it's in an emergency situation. From real life experience. If you're not gonna be thinking about it, you're gonna be doing your compressions. When I had the dog go down, the client's dog go down, I started doing it. And at that point, I had to sit here and direct my assistant what to do. I had to sit here and try and get the guy on the phone. I had to do all that stuff. I wasn't necessarily counting. I mean, I was counting, but then I was talking. And then I was coming back. At that point, am I gonna get so hooked up on how many compressions I did? No, I'm not. I'm just going to continue doing a couple extra more compressions, right? Am I gonna sit here and, really get into like his breaths? You do what you can at that point in time. And I love to teach textbook. This is what we're supposed to do, but then there's the reality behind the situation. So I'm gonna say textbook, a half to a third, but when you start doing your compressions, you're not gonna be able to go too far. So. But just the one thing that I've seen a lot of people do when I go into class and we do our hands-on with the managements and stuff, is sometimes I see people do this. So is that gonna do anything? No. So I really want it, no visit. I really want to use the base of my palm and get in there and try and get down as far as I can. Now, I usually hear, well, are you gonna break ribs and stuff? Well, you might, right? But why are we doing CPR? Because there's no life. Can I go any worse than where he's at right now?
No.
No. Do you guys need me to do it over here too?
Yeah, because I didn't see it all.
Yeah.
Is it ridiculous? I mean, we think about calling 911 for an animal, like.
It may be things have changed, but I know when I was a dispatcher, if it's an animal emergency, there's no 911. Now, so I always preface that because let's say I'm at a dog park and this dog goes down and I'm sitting here and I'm like, I can do CPR. And this person doesn't even know that that's a thing. And they come up and they're like, what are you, get your hand off my dog. What are you doing? And they come up and they start pushing me. And I'm like, whoa, wait, I'm training this. And they go, no, you're not. That's not even a thing. What are you doing, my dog? And it becomes this verbal altercation. Don't be afraid to call 911 because now this is a completely different situation. But just to say, my dog just went down and he's not breathing. They're not gonna respond to that. Now, I could be wrong, maybe policies have changed, but, like I said, it reverts back to we're all that they have. Okay, down. Down. Oh, we gotta do this one more time. There's strong and the people that. Down. Bishop, down. All the way. Come on. All right, thank you. All right, so. Oh my goodness. Just like that. We're going now. All right, so he goes down. I did my emergency assessment. I determined he needs CPR. At this point, I'm going to take that front leg, pull that back. The heart point or the elbow points to the heart, so where it stops, that's where you do your hand placement. And I'm gonna do my hand placement on him because he's big enough, the same as I would on a human, hand with hand. If he was smaller, let's say he's a 20-pound Cocker Spaniel mix, then I would probably just use my hand. Same concept as you would for an adult versus a child. Okay, so it's gonna be 30 compressions, and then I'm gonna come up here, and you're gonna make a tight seal on that muzzle, and I'm gonna go right into the nose to give him his 2 breaths. Very, very. I say make a tight seal, but as you can see here, it might not be that tight. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take that top lip and pull it down on both sides and then form a tight seal that way. So then the chances of air escaping out of here is gonna be less. Okay. So we do our 2 breaths. And then I can come back, pull that elbow back and start doing my. That was it. I did it. So we.
And twice you blew the nose.
Yes, yes. We were using vital guys. So I know Fresh Foundation. Yeah, yeah. I have not, and I don't necessarily teach that because they're made specifically for the fire department. Okay. So I do have a vital bag at home, which is great. It's just basically it's an oxygen mask that you would put over and then they would attach that to the
last time I
oxygen
took
tank.
this class, that's who I took it through.
Oh, through Beth?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I think it's great, and especially since they're distributing that.
Yeah.
The fire department, but to teach that to the public who doesn't have access to it,
I believe you can purchase them.
you can, but how many
Okay,
people are
right,
going to?
sure.
Right? So, but if they did, it would be a fantastic tool. to
Yeah.
have. All right, so, any questions with that? Yes.
So, like, I have a cat, so would the position, like, would it be like on a small dog there, would the position be similar?
Depends on
different?
the size of the cat. Yeah. I think I put it back in my thing. So if we have a cat that is smaller, like a real size kitten, he's not a real size kitten, but. So if we have a tiny Tim, or we have a kitty that may be a little bit bigger. So what I usually teach with that is when it comes to these guys, when it comes to tiny, and the tinies I like better. Sounds horrible. Tinies I like better to do CPR on. Right? Because it's easier in the regard that elbow points to the heart. So my hand, I'm gonna do kind of like a U-shaped or a taco shaped. I'm going to bring that under the arms here. I can actually do my compressions this way. So I do my compressions here, and then with him, he's brachiocephalic. I'm not gonna sit here and form a tight seal at that mouth. I'm just going to, sorry, Tim. Put my whole mouth over the face and breathe that way and just use what's in my mouth, okay? So I can sit here, I can do my 30 compressions, I can do my 2 breaths, and I can transport at the same time.
So when you're doing the compressions, are you pressing down with the palm of your hand again, or when you squeezing like
You
this?
squeeze this way. So don't do this. So even though your hand's kind of in a U, right? But we're gonna squeeze to where your thumb goes to your fingers and you're actually squeezing because we have to squeeze that chest.
So I have a 10-pound Shih Tzu, would that be about the same thing I would do for him?
So this is where I say kind of measure, because remember, we're a mechanical aid.
Yeah.
If you're 10-pound Shih Tzu, like 10 pounds can be on the heavier side, 10 pounds can be on the skinny side, but it depends on that dog shape. If you can do this and do a full compression, then that's the way that I would do it. If not, then I would probably lay him on his side and just use one hand and do it that way. Okay, so a lot of times too, I've seen some instructors say, if the animal is bigger than from here to here, then you want to go ahead and use one hand on the side.
Does it matter which side?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm. Not really.
Okay.
Especially at that side. What do you think?
He is so cute.
He's like, I hate that part. All right.
It's a little hotel.
Oh, no.
What kind of dog is Huntington?
He's a Shih Tzu Japanese Chin.
Oh, okay.
How do I wake this up?
I pushed the connect button on the back of the remote. And it
Oh.
reconnected. I'll give it a second.
Got a big sink or whatever.
It's not just really like these. I really like them. But, I mean, we're close to that.
It really likes you. This is why I say me and technology just don't like each other.
Guess we just need to go to the next one anyway.
So, with that.
Oh my God. That's funny.
This is why my dogs hate me. This is one of many. But, so one of the things that I also like to go out there is, and I've taught online classes on this, and I try and get out there and let the public know, is when we talk about animal emergencies, most of the time we just think about CPR and first aid, when really ultimately it's about emergency preparedness all the way around. And so I actually saw this on a video, which is why I was like, I'm gonna use that, because it's a true story. It was from a cam from an officer. But you're sound asleep and interrupted by someone banging on your door and windows screaming, the building's on fire, get out, get out. With only 3 minutes to spare, what would you do?
Grab my husband, grab my dog.
Right? So we all think like we're gonna grab our husband, grab our dog, or whatever you think that you're gonna grab, but are you fully prepared for that? So you grabbed your spouse and you grabbed your dog and you left the house is now gone, everything in it is gone. What do you have on you? Where are you gonna go for that night? And so this is where I talk about putting together an emergency go bag, right? Because if you have a bag in a location and you know everything is in it, you can just grab it and go. Now you have your extra medications. I highly suggest putting some sort of money in there. I used to say, make sure you got cash in there, but now everybody's like, we don't take cash. Like it's some foreign thing, right? I know. So maybe have an extra debit card. But because if you just lost everything, now you gotta go to a hotel. How are you gonna pay for that? Because your wallet just burned. And this is where, like, you're probably the same way with your family. Like my dad was always about emergency preparedness, right? So we lived on 2-story and our bedrooms were on the 2nd floor, and he made sure we had our ladders next to our windows. Like we went over plans. And that's why I tell people, like, when we're kids, at least when I was a kid, we used to do fire drills every single year at school. We had to do the whole thing and evacuate and come back in. And then I was from Illinois, so we had to do tornado drills. Some people from California did earthquake drills, right? We did that. That was part of our yearly thing. That was no big deal. The fire alarm goes off and you're like, oh, is this a fake one again? You know, instead of being all scared about it. Right? And see how it programmed you not to be scared. It programmed you to know what to do and maybe say, well, is this maybe for real or is this another fake one? Well, at least I got it at a gym class, right? But when we become adults, all of a sudden, this seems like it's a silly idea. This seems like, well, why? I don't practice that. Why should I practice that? Why should I think about that? So I go over emergency preparedness as well. Natural disasters. Out here, we have those wildfires. I heard just recently, I think Payson's on set or somewhere up in Payson, they're already on set. They're just waiting for the go. I mean, are we prepared for that type of stuff? What kind of plans do you have? So you guys, if you go on my website, which I will have at the end here, I do offer a free list that you can put your email in and you'll get the 10 emergency preparedness tips to help you just start thinking about making a plan and how to make that plan. But I always recommend practice with your pets, especially those who have cats. Cats are going to want to hide. But what I have learned over the years is, you know, again, I'm going to test you guys here. Because you know how every year you should at least teach your test your smoke detector and you push that button, make sure the batteries and everything is still working, because we all do that, right? Yes. So when we do that, I know I've had dogs I've had many dogs, but one of my dogs, definitely it started making her shake. She would go and hide. She would have this reaction to it, but at least I knew what to expect. That if something were to happen, if I was escaping and I was home to be able to tell the firefighters, hey, I think my dog may be in the living room. She may be under the couch. I know that because of how she reacted when I did my practice drills. It may not be where she went, but at least I might have an idea versus I have no idea, right? So definitely come up with an evacuation plan and include your pets in with that. So prevention strategies, well, have the proper supplies on hand. So what good does it do if I have this emergency and then I'm like, well, I don't know, give me a paper towel, right? Because that's all we have. So as we go back, don't be that 80% that don't have a first aid kit, actually have a first aid kit on hand. I do have a first aid kit that is it a raffle? That we're gonna raffle off tonight. I like to categorize my first aid kits as human and animal. This is the basic one. I have a more advanced one that comes with more stuff, obviously. But I want everybody to have at least a kit. Go through that kit. I tell you, it's amazing to me. I will say to people, do you have a first aid kit? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, have you opened it? Well, no, it's still in the plastic. Well, what good does that do you in an emergency situation? Open up the kit, go through the kit, know what you have, learn to use everything that's in that kit. There's no sense in going to the gym to lose weight when you don't know how to use the machine. And so you're just like, oh, checking out what that person's doing and stuff. You're like, no, I'm just going to go out and try it out. Right? Everything is there for you to lose the weight. Everything is there for you to utilize and utilize it a little bit more efficiently. But if you don't know how to use it, you're not going to. Go through the kit, learn how to use everything in your kit. Okay. I'll get your opinion on that. So there's a rescue retriever that's now on the market. Have you heard of it? No. So the rescue retriever is a smoke detector. I sold these in my shop, are currently sold out, but I'm going to be getting more. But it's a smoke detector that was developed by a local firefighter here in Arizona. And what it does, instead of when the smoke hits it, putting off a loud noise, it actually does a strobe light. Oh. And so their philosophy behind it is to put it on your animal's kennel, or put it in your animal's room, or by your animal's bed, wherever your animal may be in the house, to put that there to help the firefighters guide them to where your animals may be. Because you're not always going to be home if something happens. So I know that that's a little bit of controversy as far as does it actually, can they actually see it through the smoke or not? But they definitely have a lot of videos that they've posted to show you how it works. But that is a new tool that is available to you guys. And I do know from talking to them, one of their plans is to have the main unit and then have hookups to the collars. So it actually blinks on the collars itself. So I know that's coming probably in the future from the last time that I had talked to them. All right, with that being said, I think I don't even know what time it is, if I went over my hour or not. Yeah.
You got a couple. I had a question. Did you go over choking?
Not yet.
Oh, were you gonna go over?
I will now. Yes, because I didn't know how much time I had.
Well, maybe like 5-6 more minutes. Yeah.
5 to 6 more minutes? Okay, I can go over it really, really quick, because I wanted to make sure I got everything in. But this here, just really, really quickly, I do have a nonprofit myself. Bishop and I, we go around and we work with first responders and we work with their peer support teams, and we get called in to help out with debriefings. So that is Bishop's mission. The website is right here. You can go on that website for that emergency list and any other supplies that you may be interested in. And then, of course, Mr. Bishop, we got one more demonstration. Come on, buddy. Come on.
I think I was really getting into this now.
All right. So as far as choking goes, there's a couple of different things when it comes to choking. And I will go over it really quick. But when it comes to them choking, what we want to do now, I'm going to be real, right? Textbook is like, don't look in the mouth. But I know that he puts everything in his mouth, and so he's used to me coming and looking in his mouth. If he were to start choking, I'm gonna be for reals and step outside the textbook. I'm probably looking in his mouth, but I will preface that with make sure it's safe for you to do so. Okay, so I'm gonna look in his mouth, see if I see it. Hopefully, I may be able to see it, pull it out of there. And I will say from my experience with my dog that did start choking, when I got that out of her, she turned pink just as quickly as she turned blue. And she wasn't far gone enough to where when she came back out of it, she was just like, hey, so what's for breakfast? Right? Now, I've had it happen before where they choke, it took a little bit to get it out. And this time when they start coming back, you'll see there's a little nystagmus. So the eyes are kind of bouncy. You can tell they're not fully back, but they're breathing, they're pink. At that point, I make sure that I keep watch on all the vitals, make sure that they're still okay and that I don't have to go into a CPR. But it takes a little bit, it takes a couple of minutes for them to finally kind of start coming back. And it's weird. I can only say, you'll know when they start coming back. You can see it, okay? Up. So when they start choking, one of the things that we can do, depending on the size of the dog, I'm gonna use tiny, I should have something a little bit bigger, but what I'm gonna do is put both hands on each side of the chest, and I'm going to start doing chest thrust this way. Okay, so he's tiny enough that I am able to pick him up. I want him to face the ground a little bit, see if gravity can help pull that out. And I'm gonna sit here, so elbows point to the heart. I go underneath the elbows and I take my palms and I'm trying to get my palms behind the rib area. And I'm just going to press this way and do my quote unquote chest compressions this way, okay? We can't say the word Heimlich anymore. But the thing that I try to give you a visualize is, remember those fire bellows? And you would take the two handles and it would spit the air out. That's basically what you're trying to do with your dog. So you're gonna do the chest compressions until one or two things happens. It's either gonna come out or they're gonna pass out. And when they start passing out, then we're gonna go into more of like a CPR compression, okay? So we either wanna do it that way or Bishop up. Let's say Bishop here, it starts choking and I'm coming and I'm here and I'm doing this and this still isn't working, or maybe he's a Great Dane and I can't really get my hands around him to do a full chest compression. So make sure it's safe for you to do so. But what you can do on the bigger dogs is you're going to straddle them. Thank you, darling. He's like, I'm not choking. You're gonna straddle him. You're gonna put your back along their back. You're gonna bring your hands right behind that rib cage, almost like you would with a human Heimlich. And you're gonna put one hand over your fist. I'll show you when I come up. And you're gonna do a J stroke. Okay, so that almost looks like ours. We're gonna do a fist behind his rib cage. We're gonna do a fist, hand over it. We're gonna come up and do a J stroke. And we're gonna keep doing it this way until hopefully it comes out. But as you can see, and even though he was giving me kisses, if he was frightened and he's not getting oxygen and he's not thinking correctly, see how quickly he can turn around and he can get to my face. So that's why I always say, just make sure it's safe for you to do so. If he's that discombobulated and he's like, no, and he's trying to get to me, I would probably start going back into thrusts. Up, come on, up. I know, he's like, I thought we were done. But what I would probably try and do is go up against the wall. Because if my arms aren't strong enough and my upper body isn't strong enough to do it this way, I would probably go up against the wall and use my body to try and do the thrust that way. Okay?
What is going on?
Any questions with that? Because he would love to show you again.
It's time,
Well,
right?
the first way on the sides, the compressions doesn't work is when you go lower, like you were showing with the hand.
I personally would, because at that stage in the game, I'm doing anything I can. So if that's not working, I'd probably go to the other technique if they weren't passed out yet. So when they're passed out, and he's not gonna go on his side. When they're passed out and they're on their side, like he was down on the ground for his CPR demonstration, at that point, when you're doing your compressions, it's very similar to doing that pressed compression. So when we're doing the CPR compression, we're hoping that it pushes it out. It's just gonna be a little bit harder just because now it's gotta come up sideways this way versus if they're this way and it's coming out that way. But this is where we go, okay, go straight into what looks like a CPR compression. But what we're doing is we're trying to compress to get that to push out. So